before you today. We are a unit composed of all juniors from East Grand Rapids, Michigan. My name is Nick Merritt.
My name is Grace Grimsman.
My name is Raina Lindsay.
And my name is Ben Collins. Our coaches are Mr. Adam Horos and Mr. Ben Langholtz, and we are Unit 1.
Great, thank you so much for your work, really appreciate it, grateful for it. So this is Unit 1, Question 1. And it's Unit 1, Question 1. I'm going to read the whole Unit 1 question, then all of Question 1. Unit 1, what are the philosophical and historical foundations of the American political system? Question 1, why did the founders prefer a republican form of government to a democracy? Does such sentiment exist today? Explain your response. What evidence, if any, is there that suggests that the United States has evolved from being a republic to being a democratic republic? What civic dispositions among the people are required for the healthy functioning of a democratic republic? Should government encourage civic dispositions that promote a healthy, functioning democratic republic? If not, why? If so, how? Timer? You may begin.
In the late 6th century BCE, a pure democracy was employed in the city of Athens, in which the people directly voted on laws and resolutions. This system survived for 186 years due to the universal emphasis on and respect for civil discourse. Citizens, however, eventually reacted on impulse rather than civil discourse, leading them to irrationally fight a passive Macedonian army and suffer catastrophic defeat in the Hellenic War. Mindful of the gaffes of Athenian democracy, the framers avoided placing the responsibility of running a government in the hands of politically ignorant citizens.
The actions of the states during the Articles of Confederation exemplified the follies of democracy. Following its collapse, Madison made the clear distinction that the aims of their new government was to achieve a republic and ruled out pure democracy, asserting that those in general have been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. Debating elections of the executive, Gouverneur Morse argued that giving the people the choice of electing the president is like giving a blind man the choice of color, suggesting that individuals are ignorant with politics.
However, since our founding, our government has shifted toward a democracy, as the people now seek greater roles in policymaking. According to an NBC and Wall Street Journal report, 58% of participants said they wanted more influence in government as the historic fear of mob rule has dissipated. Citizens also seek stronger democratic rule. Following the 2016 election, 62% of interviewed voters agreed with achieving this through the abolition of the Electoral College, as the current system nullifies voter minorities.
The United States was designed to be a pure republic. However, American sentiment has shifted to emphasize the voice of the people. For instance, the people used the liberty of assembly to impact legislation, most notably during the Civil Rights Movement, which resulted in the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and more recently with Tea Party rallies, which changed the composition of Congress. Another democratic tool currently in use are ballot initiatives, which grant the population the ability to directly propose and vote on statewide policies. Recently, Michigan voters instituted 3 ballot initiatives in the 2018 elections, including a proposal to curb gerrymandering.
While lobbying is often considered an opposition of democracy, it can be used to amplify the voice of the people. For example, NGO lobbying proved to be a pivotal contributor to the passage of the Clean Air and Water Acts, which continue to provide clean drinking water in Michigan. Additionally, voting rights have been constantly revised to be more inclusive of the public through the 15th, 19th, 23rd, 24th, and 26th Amendments. These milestones have granted suffrage to broader demographics, therefore providing for a more democratic government.
Civic dispositions are the people's sentiments regarding society and government. One necessary civic disposition in the United States is patriotism, which holds together the cohesive social structure of the United States by combating governmental cynicism. Among other important dispositions, the U.S. functions with respect for the constitutional law, as according to Hamilton, it is the sustaining energy of a free government.
During the convention, Madison questioned, "Is there not virtue among us? If there be none, no theoretical checks, no form of government can render us secure." We agree and believe that government must encourage democratic civic dispositions. Our education system was intended to promote and teach civic engagement, but it currently does not adequately educate or connect students to government. To promote such learning, state governments should extend the civic education requirement to 2 semesters, in addition to incorporating more engaging civic activities such as mock trial or debate.
The United States government has many methods of encouraging these important civic dispositions. The military draft in the 20th century created a largely divisive political atmosphere. However, the draft's call to classical republicanism was well intended. A better way to reinstill such values could be through mandatory public service. Service in the military or other institutions like the Peace Corps or AmeriCorps could encourage classical republicanism among the different ethnographies of the United States. Thank you. We are now ready for your questions.
Great, thank you so much. And so we have some follow-up questions here. In Federalist number 55, Publius, which in this case was James Madison, wrote, had every Athenian citizen been a Socrates, every Athenian assembly would still have been a mob. What did James Madison mean by this?
In this way, James Madison, he tries to clarify the point that even the most intellectual individuals that have proven themselves time and time again to even be civically educated and know politics very well still will not be able to control a government, even with their best means or intents. He also argues that that the whimsicality of the people will always wrest the scepter from reason.
Furthermore, Madison was a strong believer that a majority could be very dangerous, and even if citizens were politically educated as Socrates was, he believes that a majority could still present a very reasonable danger and result in mob rule, which is a tyranny of the majority.
To go off my colleague Nick, we see this when he also mentions in Federalist number 10 with factions, that factions, having a majority of factions or just factions in general, can be dangerous to a democracy also.
Thank you. If you could only use the term republic or democracy to describe the United States, what term would you use and why?
I believe that we should pursue more of a republic, and I would say that we are more of a republic because we elect our representatives. Our framers laid out the Constitution so that our representatives would be the ones making the decisions. And it is also the reason why the Electoral College is set up the way it is. It is to take the decisions away from the politically ignorant, especially at that time citizens, and move it more towards politically and civically educated governance.
And when we reflect back on Athenian democracy, the founders took into account the meaning of democracy and power in polities, and how certain individuals can become susceptible to the whims of the times, the whims of too many people within a given state. And so by vesting power in representatives, we are ensuring that our government has more of a check, and that any whims of the people go through deliberative bodies so that they can benefit the whole of the community as most efficiently as possible.
And on the other hand, we could also say that our Constitution equates to a democracy. Today we see that 24 of our states have state referendums and ballot initiatives, and 18 of them also have governor recalls, in which the people can re-elect their governors if they do not feel that they are doing an adequate job. And to the point of my colleague, 27 of the states now actually have laws banning faithless electors, or at least punishing them for voting not in accordance with their constituents.
I would argue that it would depend on what stage you're looking at of America. For example, at the national level, we tend to see a more republic because we do have our representatives who are voting on bills for us or voting for us. But looking more at the local level, we do see more of a democracy where we do have much more of a say for our community.
And over time, the American Republic has evolved into more of a democracy, as throughout time we've become more involved with equality and social rights. During the American Revolution, or just after, only 6% of the American population was able to vote. But this number increased through the Civil War amendments and eventually the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
It was mentioned that one of the impetuses behind the founders and the framers, their skepticism of democracy and hearing toward a republic was their fear of putting too much power in politically ignorant hands in the masses, and then we've moved more towards a democracy after that. But now in 2019, the average American watches like 6.5 hours of television, and he's not watching C-SPAN, she's not watching C-SPAN. And the pervasive nature of social media and the political discourse, and this was even mentioned, one of you said that the civic education system currently is insufficient. So as a result of that, do you think that we should curb some democratic processes like ballot referendums or ballot recall until we get our education system fixed?
I feel that it is not necessary because we see the American people are not making big enough decisions in ballot initiatives or referendums to have that much control over the government. We still have a democracy, so it's so in a way that the people aren't making such big decisions, for example, as Brexit, where it's having economic and political impacts at that great of an extent.
And additionally, trying to curb it through curbing the media and actually limiting their speech would be a direct violation of the First Amendment, unless it could be proven to be an imminent threat to the people. And today, I do not believe that it could be proved to be so. And for now, we just need to hope that the marketplace of ideas can help us disseminate the bad ideas, so that we are left with the actually good civic dispositions in which our governors and politicians can make well-informed decisions for us.
So the founders used bicameralism and the authority of the Senate to check popular passions. What are the ways that foreign policy issues are checked from popular passions?
In Federalist 62, Madison talks about the senatorial cooling saucer and how the Senate is meant to cool the whims of the people. And the House of Representatives is very responsive to the people as they directly, they are responsible for a delegated amount of constituents. And therefore, in this way, the Senate is allowed to slow down the process and therefore further educate themselves on the topics that they're regarding.
However, extrapolating this to foreign affairs, as you mentioned, it more so depends on the whimsicality of the people more so nowadays. May I please finish this?
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas nowadays we see that people act xenophobic like instantly in response to politicians' words.
So again, I want to thank you, and I want to thank your teachers and all of your parents here for all your hard work. This is difficult material. This unit in particular, I think, is a difficult one because it encompasses both philosophical and historical components. I thought you did a very good job in your introductory remarks, perhaps both in the introductory and the Q&A. Probably the most detailed discussion we've had of Athens so far, and some of the deficiencies of it. I think you did a good job of connecting the dots between Madison's concern as exemplified by Athens and the concerns about the way in which Socrates was mistreated by not always terribly well-educated folks. First mention of Gouverneur Morris. Of course, he drafted the language of the Constitution. That's a pretty important person to cite. In the introductory remarks, I thought you did a really good job of tying some things into your own state, and you did that in the Q&A too, particularly on ballot initiatives. And I think in this political environment, kind of making people aware of that populism has different manifestations. But I thought you did a very good job, and I wish we had more time to talk about the Senate and but on the fly, really, in the final 40 seconds, you did a good job of addressing that question. So you did an excellent job. You should be very happy this morning.
I would agree with my colleague. I thought the intro was very, very strong, and I thought your answers, you were all very dying to jump in on all the questions, the follow-up questions. So I was pleased to see that none of you are timid. You're very assertive. You obviously have very good knowledge, a good command of the subject area. And I too was pleased that you're aware of what's going on with the initiatives, okay, in Michigan, and in particular gerrymandering, which is a growing concern throughout the country. You talked about the amendments and the history of the voting rights, and I think that's important for so many people to know. And then to discuss the importance of civic education, and this is, my opinion as well, that it's lacking in the schools and that we need to certainly promote that. So you're doing a great job. You're well on your way, so thank you.
I'd echo all those compliments and add one, which is I was impressed by some of the creative solutions proposed. I'm thinking of taking a negative and lobbying, but putting it in people's hands and getting some positive results in Michigan, but also losing the draft and then losing some sort of common purpose, but replacing that with civil service, mandatory civil service. So nicely done.
Thank you.